Good afternoon, Cardigan community. I'm Wes Stocken. While some of you may know me as an 8th grade day student, mountain biker, and skier, you may not know that I'm a dual citizen and hold 2 passports, South Africa and America. I've been to 5 different countries and I've traveled across America by car from the east to west coast. Although I've lived most of my life in Hanover, I spent last year in Palo Alto, California. As you know, today's theme is culture shock. You might know that by living 25 minutes down the road that I would be used to the rule setting of Cardigan. What culture shocks can I have? Actually, I found that I experience culture shocks every day on my ride to school. Traveling on dirt roads, I have been shocked to see bears, moose, skunk, and plenty of deer. On Saturday, I even saw a fox with a chipmunk in its mouth. While these experiences may seem normal to some, they are not so normal to me. In California, there are paid employees that stand next to public railroad crossings to make sure that no one throws themselves on the track. There are intersections that have 27 traffic lights and take 12 minutes to drive through. In South Africa, water is scarce and so are the number of rhinos. The amazing opportunities are scary. Parachuting from GoPros, swimming with sharks, and jumping into and surfing the beautiful ocean surrounding the Cape. That is until the shark warning air horn goes off. At Cardigan, we are a weird mix of experiences and culture, and we play a variety of different sports, speak different languages, and come from many different places. The most popular things to eat at Cardigan are Nutella sandwiches, sticky rice, and plenty of water. I think here at Cardigan, we want to be a community that realizes that we all come from different backgrounds and we all have different cultural shocks that we have experienced and are currently experiencing. We need to be empathetic towards one another. If we can accomplish that, we can be the Cardigan community that we want to be. Thank you. Please join me in welcoming Alan He and Anthony Sheen.
Thank you very much, Wes. Good afternoon, Cardigan community. Today, Anthony and I are talking about some of the culture shock that he and I felt coming to Cardigan Mountain School from China. These are some things that surprised us and were very uncomfortable or different from our normal lives in China. In China, we usually stay in one classroom for the whole class day. However, at Cardigan, each teacher has their own classroom, so we are moving around all day long, and I felt it was hard to memorize all the classrooms. Another thing I noticed early on at CMS was that there are small classes. In China, we usually have 40 or 50 students in a class. At first, I really enjoyed all the attention from my teachers. However, slowly, I felt like they were always staring at me. And it made me a little uncomfortable. Also, there are different rules in the classroom, such as you don't need to raise your hand before answering a question. In China, it is very rude if you answer a question without raising your hand. But at Cardigan, it's a common behavior in many of my classes. Finally, when I first came to CMS, I was worried because I didn't know how the grading system worked. It was very different from China. In China, the mid and final tests count for 40% of your overall grade. So even if I mess up a grade, it wouldn't matter. At Cardigan, some of our reading quizzes can really affect your overall grades. Once, I thought we just had a small quiz, but it turned out to lower my overall grade from an A to a B. In general, coming to Cardigan from China is a big change for us, and there's a lot to get used to. And now, I would like to invite Anthony to share some of his experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Good afternoon, faculty and my Cardigan brothers. I would like to share a couple of my experiences with culture shock when I first came to Cardigan. Of course, a big shock for me was the food. When I first came to Cardigan, I was actually pretty excited about the food because we have a main and a dessert every dinner. But after a few weeks, I started to miss Chinese food. The style and flavor of food between China and America are totally different. Even the plates and the serving methods and utensils are completely different. I thought that I could adapt to it, but I actually miss Chinese food more than I thought. Other than the food, I think that language was the biggest part of culture shock for me. The main reason is that in China, we're in a Chinese-speaking environment, and we only have 2 English classes per day. Basically, we speak Chinese all day. But at Cardigan, we need to speak English every day and have class English too. At the first and second day of school, I could only understand 17% or even lower of what teachers and my classmates said, which is pretty frustrating. I felt upset and worried about my grades because I could even understand the teacher or my classmates. For the first few days, I tried my best to listen more clearly and memorize more vocabulary to help me, but I still feel nervous and worried all the time. Something that surprised me was that when we speak our learning language at Cardigan, other students who do not speak Chinese will imitate what we are saying, and some of them say how weird it sounds and how hard it must be to speak. Well, I think this was strange to me because I'm speaking my own language, and I hope they can respect this language as I do. The culture shock from language made me feel unhappy and uncomfortable a lot in the beginning of the school year. Now, I feel like I make less mistakes and can understand pretty well about what people are saying. I don't feel the same worry and nervousness at the beginning of the year, but it's still tiring to speak and listen to a foreign language all day. Overall, Alan and I feel like it's a good chance for us to study at Cardigan. We can learn a lot more than we could if we stayed in China, but it's pretty hard to adapt when we first came here. Thank you very much for listening.
Good afternoon, faculty and Cardigan brothers. I can't believe that after watching speeches every week for almost 3 years, it is my turn. It is exciting, but I would be lying if I did not admit that I'm pretty nervous. Coming to a new country or place with a completely different culture is a challenge. I'm going to be a 4-year boy, and I was actually a summer session student for 3 years before I came. I already knew people like Mr. Rinkin, Ms. Johnson, Mr. Langety, Mr. Wennick, and Mr. Lawson. But that did not mean I was ready and it was easy. There are lots of different ways that I to get used to cultural differences, and there are few big areas for me that I come to mind. First of all, greeting around campus to peoples. I'm from city in Korea. It is crowded with people, don't know each other, and there is no time to stop and say hi all the time. Actually, people might think you're crazy if you do. But here, that is what we do. I had to get used to people saying hello and asking what's up or have a nice day. I had to learn to answer because not everything is the same. It took me time to accept that all the teachers and a lot of students know who I am. That was uncomfortable at first, but I love it now. Second, in Korea, we have different kinds of language, words, and treatment for older people or people in important positions. We would never think to just say hi to an adult. We also have to be very polite and proper to older students. It is all a sign of respect. I had to learn that we might do things the same way at Cardigan, but we are still polite. Holding the door, saying Excuse me, may I? Pardon me, and thank you. Maybe biggest saying I'm sorry. These are the parts of the culture that mean a lot. In Korea, if we are in trouble, we never look to teachers in the eyes. Here you have to. I've learned that just because it is not as formal, it does not make it less polite. Third, having a roommate is a big deal in a country where most families have one kid. I never had a roommate before I got here. I also was used to my mom cleaning up after me. Learning how to live with someone from a different place is a culture shock. In 6th grade, even though Shinshu and I are from countries nearby each other, we had to learn so much to get along. Sharing spaces, learning if a person is a morning person or a night owl. Adjusting to when they talk to their families and what they eat. This is all a cultural adjustments. I always thought it was funny when my advisor would tell us that Cardigan is a completely different from everywhere in the world. Even if you are from US, I hate to say it, but Mr. Langety might be right. It is hard to adjust to living in a different place. It is hard to learn that just because it is different does not make it bad, but it is worth it. I'm glad I get to learn these things, and I'm glad to get to share them with you. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, Cardigan community. Today I'm here to talk about cultural shock. Cultural shock, as we all know, is a confusion, fear, or uncertainty we feel when we arrive to a different country, culture, or way of life. Being an international student at Cardigan has advantages and disadvantages. When I first came to Cardigan as an 8th grader, the people were warm and welcoming. But I'm not gonna lie, throughout campus I heard stereotypes like our burritos Mexican, our tacos in the dining hall, real tacos, stuff like that. And to be honest, I had some stereotypes as well. The first thing most American kids used to ask me was if I could give them beer pops or if I could teach them how to swear in Spanish, which I'm sure they all know how to by now. Something I did love was that at least one kid per team I was in would ask me to teach him Spanish. As a matter of fact, by now my roommate from last year and my roommate from this year would understand me if I would start speaking in Spanish to them. I definitely love how interested people are in our cultures and teaching them about them. But I also enjoy learning about other cultures from places like China, Korea, Japan, Kuwait, Bermuda, etc. One of my favorite parts about Cardigan is the diversity and learning about cultures from all around the world. Learning their traditions, tasting their foods, and even sometimes celebrating their holidays with them. The fact that Cardigan encourages every culture to be shared with a community is what makes learning about other places so special. Back home we may learn about other countries as well, but it's not the same as learning it from a person from that country. That's what makes our community so culturally strong. Being an international student at Cardigan doesn't mean being a student at a boarding school in a different country. It means putting the best of our cultures together to make what we call the Cardigan community. Thank you.